And I'm excited to welcome all of our guests today, all of our panelists. Welcome all of you to the Committee on Government Oversight and Reform, our roundtable on examining the long-term impacts of gender wage gap on moms. Today's panel is, of course, here at Hunter College, and we're also live streaming this conversation to the public. Committee members are joining us via Zoom, and they will be participating with us virtually. As a mother myself, I have personally experienced the discrimination and hardships that many women face in the workplace. I can remember applying for jobs and being told, "We can't hire you. You're married. You're a mother. We can't hire you. You won't work hard." What do you mean I'm not going to work hard? I need a job. I remember when I had my first child, going to the personnel office and inquiring about leave policies. And I was told there are no leave policies. Women just leave. And I said, I don't want to leave. Well, we expect you to leave. I said, well, I'm not leaving. And they said, this will be the first time that that has happened. And so we've made great progress. I was able to keep my job, but they threatened to fire me and all kinds of things. So it's been very, very difficult for working mothers. Things have improved since I had young children, but they haven't really changed enough. And we must make more progress so that mothers are supported and fairly compensated for the incredible work that they do. Nearly 2 decades ago, I released a report with Representative John Dingell. It was called A New Look at the Glass Ceiling, which looked at women in key industries and looked not only at when they went into work, but 5 years out when they went into management. And it showed, because of work in Congress and the women's movement and labor, men and women often entered the workforce at equal pay. But 5 years out, when you went into management, when you went into promotions, the discrimination gaps were absolutely huge, sometimes more than 20 points. It also showed that in times of prosperity, when you would think it would narrow the wage gap, it broadened it. So it documented that. I have done several of those, and I'm going to issue a report today, request to GAO with the women members and like-minded men on the committee, requesting a new look at the glass ceiling, a new GAO report that will measure if we've made any significant progress. I will note that women of color and women in different stages in their careers were affected differently in the disparities. So today's meeting is a sequel to an important hearing that we had in our committee in March 24th, which is Women's Equal Pay Day. And as we know, Women's Equal Pay Day is not a celebration. It's a day to recognize how far we still have to go to close the gender wage gap in our country. And today's roundtable highlights Moms Equal Pay Day. And that day marks how many extra days women with children must work to be paid the same amount as their male counterparts. These women must work over 5 extra months just to earn the same amount as a man. This is totally unfair. I remember stories and experiences in my own life. If a man became a father, he got a raise. If a mother became a mother and was working, she was often demoted, moved to part-time, or even fired. On average, working women are still paid only 82 cents for every dollar paid to a man. And mothers are even farther behind. Moms earn 70 cents for every dollar paid to fathers, and single mothers bring in just 54 cents for every dollar earned by married men. The gender gap is even worse for many women of color. For example, Latina mothers are paid just 45 cents for every dollar paid to white fathers. Native American women and Black mothers are paid only 50 cents and 52 cents, respectively, for every dollar paid to white fathers. In our hearing that we had earlier, we not only documented the wage gap, but we documented the wage wealth gap, I will call. It was how much women lost over a lifetime because of the wage differential. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it contributes to women being the largest segment of poverty, older women in our country. The corona pandemic has only made the wage gap for women with children worse. Women make up a majority of healthcare and social service workers and have disproportionately shouldered the burden of essential work during the pandemic, working on the front lines. Nearly 3 million U.S. women have dropped out of the labor force in this past year, and we need solutions to help mothers not only return to work, but to thrive in the workplace. I am pleased that the House Education and Labor Committee took one important step just last week by adopting my Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers Act, or the PUMP Act. I remember how tough it was to be a new mom. This bill will ensure more working women are given the time and privacy that they need to pump at work to keep themselves and their infants healthy. Another crucial step is making sure the federal government is a model employer in supporting working mothers and families. And that's why I have long championed legislation to help women. The first bill that I voted on in Congress was the Family and Medical Leave Act. The first bill I worked on with then Senator Biden was the Violence Against Women Act. And I've long championed from I first came paid leave for the birth of a child. The United States and Papua New Guinea were the only two countries in the world that did not provide support for the birth of a child. Finally, we passed it last year, and it came out of the committee that I now chair. I'm very proud of that, and this is a great success for Congress. The passage of the Federal Employee Paid Leave Act, which provides federal employees up to 12 weeks of paid time for parental leave. And as I said, we need to expand that to cover a paid family and medical leave for federal employees, which I hope we will pass this year and serve as a model to the private sector to do the same. My friend Representative DeLauro has a bill in that will do just that. No one should be unable to care for their families because they can't afford to take the necessary time off for work or for family meetings or for meetings with schools. And today we will also discuss the Biden-Harris administration support for working moms through the American Families Plan, which is a very great proposal they put forward. That plan would make crucial investments in child care, paid leave, providing a major boost to the economic well-being of women and children. Finally, we will talk about reforms that promote an equitable and inclusive economic recovery for mothers across the U.S. so that our response to the pandemic leads not only to recovery, but to a more equitable future. As chairwoman of the Oversight Committee, I will continue to seek meaningful solutions to these problems until women's work is valued equally. Our work is not done yet.